This is Lecture 7 on photosynthesis, a description of the photosystems, continuing with photosystem 2, the non-cyclic pathway. And I'm going to be describing the electron transport chain of photosystem 2. The stair steps represent the electron transport chain of photosystem 2, the P680. As described in the previous video, electrons from the breakdown of water, the photolysis of water in photosystem 2, the P680, the non-cyclic pathway, electrons from the breakdown of water are going to be moved through an electron transport chain on the thylakoids, releasing energy that the cell can use, in this instance, to move hydrogen ions. In photosystem 2, the photolysis of water, the breakdown of water, yields electrons, which go down the electron transport chain, but also yield hydrogen ions. The energy produced by the flow of electrons down the photosystem, the electron transport chain, this energy is going to move hydrogen to one compartment of the thylakoid membrane. Photosystem 2 is called the non-cyclic pathway because the electrons for the electron transport chain of photosystem 2 comes from the breakdown of water. For photosystem 2 to continue to have electrons to move down the electron transport chain and produce energy, there has to be a fresh supply of water for photosystem 2. Photosystem 2, which is, as we mentioned, is the photosystem that produces atmospheric oxygen. Photosystem 2 is the reason plants need water in order to break the water down and to harvest the electrons and the hydrogen, the electrons to go down the electron transport chain. Once the sun goes down, photosystem 2 stops. The electrons at the end of photosystem 2 are going to be fed into photosystem 1. So the electron transport chain of photosystem 2, also known as the P680. So here is the electron transport chain of photosystem 2, the P680. And I just got done saying that once the electrons reach the bottom of the electron transport chain of the P680, photosystem 2, those electrons are going to go to the electron transport chain of the P700, also known as photosystem 1. Those electrons coming from the P680 are going to go down the electron transport chain of photosystem number 1, which uses chlorophyll capturing photons at a nanometer wavelength of 700 nanometers, The electrons are going to go down the electron transport chain. And the P700 is also known as the cyclic pathway because as long as the sun is out and those chlorophylls at the heart of photosystem 1 are capturing photons traveling at 700 nanometers, they can continue to recycle electrons. That's why photosystem 1 is the cyclic pathway. It can recycle electrons, whereas the P680, photosystem number 2, cannot recycle electrons. Its electrons are going to photosystem 1. In order for photosystem 2 to have electrons, it has to have a fresh supply of water. Ultimately, all of the energy that's produced by the photosystems is used to move those hydrogen ions that were also a result of the photolysis of water. I'm going to go back to a chloroplast and draw a thylakoid membrane, and I'm going to blow up extra big what the thylakoid membrane would look like. And within the thylakoid membrane are doorways called ATP Synthase channels. The hydrogen ions are pumped to one side of the thylakoid compartment. And the only place that the hydrogen ions can move to the other side is through an ATP synthase channel. Just like the flow of electrons produces energy, the flow of hydrogen through an ATP synthase channel also produces energy. And the energy being produced by the flow of hydrogen ions through the ATP synthase channel, I'm going to draw that really big, the ATP synthase channel within the thylakoid membrane. We'll have a bunch of hydrogen on one side, hydrogen ions, naked protons, that can only flow through that ATP synthase channel. And the movement of the hydrogen produces energy that's needed to drive the phosphorylation of adenosine diphosphate into ATP. This energy from hydrogen moving through the ATP synthase channel is going to be the activation energy necessary to add an inorganic phosphate to ADP, thereby making ATP, the universal energy currency that the cell of the plants are going to require within the chloroplasts in the dark reactions described in the next video.